I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I would like to welcome Councillor Lori Hodnott to Council Chambers. Councillor Hodnott was sworn into County Council on Monday, March the 10th, 2025. So welcome, Councillor Hodnott. As we gather here today, we acknowledge on behalf of the County of Renfrew and our community that we are meeting on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin people. The County of Renfrew was established in 1861 on these lands, which have been cared for by the Algonquin people for thousands of years. We express our gratitude to the Algonquin people for their stewardship of this land and honor their rich history and culture. We also thank all generations of Indigenous peoples who have maintained a deep connection to this territory, and we are committed to fostering respect, reconciliation, and understanding. It is with profound sadness that I share the heartbreaking news of the sudden passing of our dear colleague and friend Jamie Brandberger, the interim dean of the Pembroke Waterfront campus. Jamie passed away unexpectedly yesterday, leaving all of us who knew him in shock and sorrow. As a colleague, a friend, and a passionate advocate for both education and the County of Renfrew community, Jamie's loss is deeply felt by everyone who had the privilege of working alongside him. His dedication to Algonquin College and his beloved hometown was evident in every aspect of his work. He was not only a respected leader, but a source of unwavering support and inspiration for many of us. We would like to honor Jamie's memory today during our moment of silence. Our thoughts are with his family, our colleagues at the Pembroke campus, and all those in the Algonquin College community who had the privilege of knowing him. Jamie's contributions to Renfrew County are numerous and will leave a lasting legacy. He will be sorely missed by all of us. Please stand.
Our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Good morning, Madam Clerk. Could you please call roll?
Good morning. Councillor Bennett,
Here.
Councillor Burrows,
Present.
Councillor Doncaster, Councillor Donahue,
Here.
Councillor Giardini,
Present.
Councillor Grills,
Present.
Councillor Hodnott,
Here.
Councillor Yon,
Here.
Councillor Lynch,
Here.
Councillor Mayville,
Present.
Councillor Murphy,
Here.
Councillor Nicholson,
Here.
Councillor Proctor. Oops, sorry. Councillor Service,
Here.
Councillor Watt,
Present.
Councillor Weir,
Here.
and Councillor Wilmer.
Present.
Thank you, and we have quorum.
Thank you, and I'm also present. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, if we could have a motion and a seconder, please, that the minutes of County Council meeting of February 26, 2025, the minutes be adopted. Member from North Agona Wilbur, seconded by a member from Bonshire Valley. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you very much. And if I could have a mover, please, that the minutes of the County Council closed session of February 26, 2025 be adopted. A mover, please. Mover from Laurentian Hills, seconded by a member from Greater Madawaska. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you very much, Council. Since last County Council meeting on February 26th, I have attended 6 meetings on Council business. I would like to take a moment to extend my congratulations to Premier Doug Ford on his recent provincial election victory. His leadership will continue to shape the future of our province, and we look forward to working together to advance the interests of the County of Renfrew. I want also to extend my sincere congratulations on behalf of this Chambers to Billy Deneau on his recent election win as the Progressive Conservative Member of Provincial Parliament for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke. His victory is testament to the trust and confidence placed in him by the community, and we are confident he will serve with distinction, energy, and dedication. Additionally, I want to recognize and congratulate Prime Minister-designate Mark Carney on his success in the Liberal leadership race. His experience and vision for the future will undoubtedly play a significant role in shaping our country's direction. I would like to take this opportunity to express our pride and gratitude in congratulating the Director of Emergency Services and Chief Paramedic Michael Nolan on receiving the King Charles III Coronation Medal. The award is presented to persons that contribute significantly to their community. This award is evidence of his dedication and service excellence in our community. I would like to congratulate all of the recipients of the award in Renfrew County, including our own Mayor David Bennett, and express our appreciation to Cheryl Gallant for nominating the award winners and for hosting the event. On March the 4th, I attended Enterprise Renfrew County's Francophone Entrepreneur Networking and Award event at the Centre Culturel Francophone de Pembroke. Held in partnership with Renfrew County Community Futures Development Corporation, the event drew a number of Francophone entrepreneurs from the city of Pembroke and across the region to network and learn about services and programs available for French-speaking businesses. Congratulations to Lucas Fleuron and Bernadette Demond of Ottawa Valley Taekwondo for winning the Francophone Entrepreneur of the Year award. In recognition of International Women's Day on Saturday, March 8th, county staff celebrated the day on March 5th, honoring the strength, resilience, and achievements of women with a series of videos and a live presentation from County Forester Lacey Rose on the impact of women in our workforce. Together, we recognize the diverse contributions women make in every corner of society, whether in leadership, innovation, advocacy, or everyday acts of courage and compassion. International Women's Day is a time to reflect on the progress we've made, but also to acknowledge the work that still lies ahead to achieve true equality. Let us stand together, and not just today, but every day, in supporting and empowering women to reach their fullest potential. The Honourable Edith Dumont, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, announced the 2023 recipients of the Ontario Medal for Good Citizenship on Monday, and I would like to congratulate the two Renfrew County recipients, Lucille Levinsky of Deep River. 30 years ago, Lucille Levinsky started the Christmas Basket Program and coordinated efforts to provide grocery vouchers and gift items for approximately 250 families in North Renfrew, ensuring that no one goes without during the holiday season. Lucille and her volunteers of the Deep River sorority raise over $15,000 annually and set up Christmas trees with angel ornaments to help the community residents with their gift donations. She provides and facilitates a dignified way for families to experience the spirit of giving, kindness, and peace at Christmas. I'd also like to congratulate Brian Weckworth of Eganville. He is a pillar of the region and an exceptional volunteer for over 30 years in the township of Boncher Valley. Brian has served his community in myriad ways with the Rotary Club, fundraising for the Eganville District Food Bank. His efforts with Camp Lutheran projects have ensured the camp is able to meet its goals and help the community and families across Ontario with affordable programming. He served on the board of the Eganville Area Community Development Group as treasurer and played a key role in the construction of McCrae Park, the fishing dock, and the downtown improvement projects. Finally, I want to strongly emphasize the importance of our Think campaign. Buy local, buy Renfrew County, buy Canadian. This initiative is a commitment to help our local economy and prioritize our businesses. Let us move forward collectively and share our determination amongst all our municipalities to encourage all residents to consciously choose to make local purchasing decisions. I will remind those assembled here of the following: the County of Renfrew, experience our history, share our future. This concludes my address for this session of County Council. At this time, we have no delegations or presentations. And Madam Clerk, correspondence?
Any correspondence has been received by County Council.
Thank you. And we'll move to Operations Committee report to County Council, and Chair, please.
Thank you, Warden. We, your Committee of the Whole Operations, wish to report and recommend as follows. Under Information, 1, County Road 512, Foymont Road fundraising cycling event request. 2, PWC 2025-18 engineering services for the replacement of B188 Turcotte Bridge. Under Resolutions, Transit options for the County of Renfrew, Resolution number OPCC 250230, moved by Chair, seconded by Committee, that the County Council develop an ad hoc committee to review potential options for a transit system with application for the County of Renfrew. The background is there for your information. Resolution number 4 is alterations to county roads and structures. Resolution number OPCC 250233, moved by Chair, seconded by Committee, that County Council adopt a bylaw approving the alterations to county roads and structures for the 2025 construction season, and the background is there for your information. Number 5 is contract PWO 2023-03 pavement marking contract extension. Resolution number OPCC 250234, moved by Chair, seconded by Committee, that County Council approve contract PWO 2023-03 for pavement marking as submitted by Trillium Pavement Parking, Carleton Place, Ontario, dated March 21st, 2023, for 1 additional year, 2025, in the amount of $707,042.54, plus applicable taxes, and the county council adopt the bylaw to execute the contract extension. The background is there for your information. Number 6, PWC 2023-56, Contract Administration and Inspection of Rehabilitation of County Structure B145 Combermere Bridge. Resolution number OPCC 250235, moved by Chair, seconded by Committee. The County Council approve an amendment to Contract PWC 2023-56 as submitted by Jacobs Consultancy Canada Limited on Ottawa, Ontario, for engineering services for the rehabilitation of County Structure B145 Combermere Bridge to include contract administration and construction inspection in the amount of $379,123.30 plus applicable taxes, and the county adopt a bylaw to execute the amendment to the contract. The background is there, all of which is respectfully submitted by Dan Lynch, Vice Chair, and committee members. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you. Questions from members of council on item number 1? Item number 2? Item number 3? Yes, thank you. Member from Whitewater.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate how well done this report and in-depth it was from Director Perkins. I really think it's going to be a useful tool. I'd encourage the leadership in the room, if possible, to share this draft report with seniors organizations in your communities for their input, seniors active living centers, home support, community support organizations, to get their feedback and input. I think it's an excellent first shot at the problem. So I just wanted to publicly thank the staff for their work on this one.
Yes, thank you. And member from North Gona Wilberforce.
Thank you, Warden, and I just wanted to echo my colleagues' comments. This was an incredible amount of work and a lot of research, and I certainly do appreciate the significant amount of information, and I'm really looking forward to moving this project forward as well. So just wanted to extend my thanks as well.
Thank you. And did I see any other hands? Okay, thank you. And again, just to reaffirm to Mr. Perkins and his staff, what a well-done paper, and I think it's certainly, when you combine it with the terms of reference, is a very good grounding document for us as we go forward. You know, and I think when you look at the number of interviews and consultations, it went a long way to identifying who the service providers are. But it also noted the economic limitations and the health limitations of our current system, which isn't really a system. And I think the case studies that are provided should stimulate a lot of discussion. So again, I agree with you. What a great resource, and I'm sure we'll send it out as a standalone email to our CAOs and to you in the chambers, and then you can forward it to the groups that you find need this. So moving on, we'll move to item number 4. Item number 5. Item 6. The report as a whole. Could I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Thank you. You've heard the report. You've heard some of the comments. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you, Council. And we'll ask the Chair of Development and Property, please, to report.
Thank you, Warden. To the Council of the Corporation of the County of Renfrew, members of County Council, we are Committee of the Whole, Development and Property, wish to report and recommend as follows. It's a lengthy report, so I'll start with resolution number 1, the Climate Action Ad Hoc Committee Terms of Reference, resolution number DP-CC-25-02-17, moved by Chair, seconded by committee, that County Council approve the terms of reference for the Climate Action Ad Hoc Committee. The background is attached, and all of which is respectfully submitted by myself as Chair and committee members. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you. I have to admit, I was a little confused. I thought maybe somebody had mislaid a page in my binder. Item number 1, members of council, and the member from Madawaska Valley, or Greater Madawaska, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to just state again that if possible, I'd like to be, I'm available to be on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I did make note of that some time ago, and it's on a little yellow sticky on my computer screen. So we'll be reaching out to people. Any further comments or questions? I think it's extremely well done, this terms of reference. Climate change and dealing with it and fashioning a cohesive response for all 17 municipalities plus ourselves, and working with the city, working with industry. It's going to take some time, but I think we are well placed because of our relationships and the strength in these chambers to fashion a response that meets the needs of our community. So you've heard the report. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None? Thank you. And I should have asked for a mover, I guess. Could I have a mover, please?
So moved, Warden.
Thank you. So we've completed all the work we had to do with that, so thank you. Are there any consent items? Seeing none. Staff reports with direction? None. Closed session? None. We don't have to rise. No matters. We have no reports at this time from external boards. And notice of motion, Councillor Murphy, please.
Thank you, Warden. At this time, I would ask for a seconder to suspend the rules so that I can put a notice of motion on the table to move our June 11th County Council meeting to Thursday, June 2nd. There is a AMO and Roma Rural Healthy Democracy Forum, and it is in Mississippi Mills. Unfortunately, as soon as I realized that it was June 11th, I always look now when it's a Wednesday. So if I could get a seconder to suspend the rules and it passes, I can go into more depth onto what this day will hold. Thank you, Warden.
And the seconder is from Whitewater, the member from Whitewater. So discussion, please.
I think we have to suspend the rules first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, my apologies. And discussion on suspending the rules. Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Council. So at this time, I will ask for a seconder to my motion to move our June 11th County Council meeting to Thursday, June 12th.
And the seconder is North Agona Wilberforce.
Thank you. So on June 11th in the municipality of Mississippi Mills, which is right in our backyard, and why I think it's very important, I did say to some of my colleagues when they reached out that AMO and Roma probably will do this again. However, the challenge is it could be anywhere in Ontario, and that's why I think that this is so important. This is a full-day event. It'll bring together municipal and sector leaders, academics, and experts for insightful discussion on the state of democracy in rural Ontario, engage in thought-provoking conversations, and explore ways to strengthen civic participation and governance in our communities. There is a lot of information on the AMO website. This is something that I believe I was asked by a few people, would this be worth missing County Council for? Unfortunately, I think it is, and this is why I think it's so important that instead of missing county council, where we might actually lose quorum if enough of us want to go, I thought that this was a better alternative. I will mention that I asked if we could just cancel this meeting and only have our last meeting in June. However, that is our corporate services meeting in June, and our auditors will be here to disclose our financial statements. So it would be very difficult to put it off to the end of the month. I hope if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them, Warden.
Thank you. Member from Whitewater, please.
Thanks, Warden. I support the proposal. I just wanted to confirm with staff if there's any considerations that we might need from a staff perspective before we make the decision.
Okay.
You want me to hit? And in fact, that day is also the last day of AMCTO in Windsor. And so any staff that were going to that would have had to come back early for county council. So this actually worked out quite well, that our staff can stay in Windsor, finish off AMCTO, and then return home for county council on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. That's exactly what I was going to say. Greater Madawaska, please.
Thank you, Warden, through you. I think it's an important event that we should attend, and I believe that this is more than enough advance notice to make this change. Thank you.
Thank you. Member from Amherst and Brownlee, please.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I wonder if Councillor Murphy might identify what is the alternative date?
It would be Thursday, June 12th.
From the preceding Wednesday?
Yes.
So just one day later?
Yeah,
Okay.
one day later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if there are no further comments, then I would just add, we constantly complain that we don't have enough events and we aren't consulted or get information, and it's all Toronto-centric or it's in larger centers. So I think when there's an important event where we can learn, and it's not a ceremonial event or a make us feel good event, I think it's important for us to attend when possible. And it sounds like when reviewing this with internally with staff and also hearing from members of council that I think this makes sense. We'll try not to make it a practice to move county council dates, but in some instances we have to. And so with that, if there are no further points to be raised, all those in favor? Opposed? None is carried. Thank you very much, Council. And with that, we'll move to item number 19, which is members' written motions. So you will recall we had this conversation on the 12th of February and then on the 26th. And so there's been some changes which we think reflect the will of council to this motion. So it was deferred, and so what I can suggest to you is that it is in your package. If the overwhelming desire is for me to read it, I'd be more than happy to. Just a simple nod of the head and vigorous waving would attract my attention, maybe. But yes, in all seriousness, if there's a desire for me to read it, I will. However, okay, I will go ahead and read it then. Thank you. The resolution that County Council adopt the following motion. Whereas trade between Ontario and the United States is vital to the economic prosperity of Renfrew County and its businesses, industries, and workforce. And whereas the proposed tariffs on Canadian goods exported to the U.S. could negatively impact local businesses, industries, and municipalities, increasing costs and reducing economic opportunities, whereas according to the data from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, across Ontario municipalities are expected to spend between $250 and $290 billion on infrastructure in the next 10 years. And whereas municipalities spend over $22 billion annually procuring goods and services and are willing and eager to use this significant buying power to support the federal and provincial governments in protecting Ontario and Canada's economic well-being, and whereas municipalities play a key role in local economic development and procurement, and should have the ability to support local businesses while ensuring value for taxpayers. And whereas Ontario municipalities have traditionally treated trade partners equally and fairly in all procurements in accordance with our established international trade treaties, and whereas Canada's Prime Minister and Ontario's Premier have outlined several plans to combat the impact that the proposed tariffs would have on Ontario while focus on strengthening trade between Ontario and the U.S., while bringing jobs back home for workers on both sides of the border. And whereas the Canadian government has outlined several ways to address the current relationship with the U.S., including establishing the Council on Canada-U.S. Relations to support the federal government as it negotiates with the U.S. on tariffs, and whereas trade between Ontario and the U.S. is very important to our residents and local economies, and requires all levels of government to work together in the best interest of those residents. And whereas many Ontario municipalities are passing resolutions calling for a united cross-Canada approach to supporting Buy Canada initiatives and collaboration to remove barriers that prevent municipalities from giving preference to Canadian suppliers during procurement. And whereas the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, EOWC, has passed resolutions supporting the efforts of the Canadian and Ontario governments in their negotiations with the U.S. to address these barriers, trade barriers, and therefore be it resolved that the County of Renfrew supports other Ontario municipalities that have passed resolutions urging the Canadian and Ontario governments to take all necessary measures to protect Ontario's interests in trade negotiations and to ensure municipalities are included in a coordinated response. And further, that the County of Renfrew supports efforts to remove barriers that limit municipalities' ability to prioritize Canadian suppliers in procurement while ensuring fair and transparent trade practices. And further, that the County of Renfrew continues to support local businesses, industries, and workforce through the efforts of the Economic Development Department, including a Buy Local, Buy Canadian campaign and a review of County of Renfrew procurement options that support the Canadian economy. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, the County of Peterborough, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, local municipalities of Renfrew County, and relevant federal and provincial representatives. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Murphy, seconded by the member from Arnprior. Discussion. Member from Amherst Brownlee, please.
Begging your pardon, Mr. Warden, so is this the original or is this the replacement?
This is the replacement. No. Okay. Okay, so my apologies. All right, so.
And we can treat that as a dress rehearsal.
Yes, thank you. So my apologies. Could we have a motion to replace that with the with the new one? Yes, thank you.
I was going to stop you, but I thought it'd be rude.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was just making sure I understood all the big words. Can I have a seconder for that, please? And member from Amherst Brownlee. So with that, County Council adopt the following motion, whereas Ontario or Canada recognizes and is committed to trade as essential and integral in increasing prosperity both domestically and internationally, and whereas foundational to this commitment is an inviolable respect for negotiated trade agreements and World Trade Organization rules based on fundamental principles that form the foundations of the multilateral trading system, and whereas the tariffs proposed by the U.S. administration are predicated on lax Canadian border security regarding the inflow of fentanyl and illegal immigration. And whereas these bases are without merit and are simply a capricious pretext to provide a facade of legality to an act of economic aggression, and whereas the U.S. President has acknowledged that tariffs are entirely predicated on a trade imbalance that he perceives in a grossly misinformed position to be predatory, and whereas trade between Ontario and the U.S. is vital to the economic prosperity of Renfrew County and its businesses, industries, and workforce. And whereas the proposed tariffs on Canadian goods exported to the U.S. would negatively impact local businesses, industries, and municipalities, increasing costs and reducing economic opportunities. And whereas according to the data from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, across Ontario municipalities are expected to spend between $250 and $290 billion on infrastructure in the next 10 years. And whereas municipalities spend over $22 billion annually procuring goods and services and are willing and eager to use this significant buying power to support the federal and provincial governments in protecting Ontario and Canada's well-being, economic well-being. And whereas municipalities play a key role in local economic development and procurement and should have the ability to support local businesses while ensuring value for taxpayers. And whereas Ontario municipalities have traditionally treated trade partners equally and fairly in all procurements in accordance with their established international trade treaties. And whereas Canada's Prime Minister and Ontario's Premier have outlined several plans to combat the impact that the proposed tariffs would have on Ontario, which focus on strengthening trade between Ontario and the U.S. while bringing jobs back home for workers on both sides of the border. And whereas the Canadian government has also outlined several ways to address the current relationship with the U.S., including establishing the Council on Canada-U.S. Relations to support the federal government as it negotiates with the U.S. on tariffs. And whereas trade between Ontario and the U.S. is very important to our residents and local economies, and require all levels of government to work together in the best interest of the residents. And whereas many Ontario municipalities are passing resolutions calling for a united cross-Canada approach to supporting Buy Canadian initiatives and collaboration to remove barriers that prevent municipalities from prohibiting U.S. suppliers during procurement. And whereas the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, EOWC, has passed resolutions supporting the efforts of the Canadian and Ontario governments in their negotiations with the U.S. to address the imposition of arbitrary, pernicious, and unlawful tariffs. Therefore, be it resolved that the County of Renfrew supports other Ontario municipalities that have passed resolutions urging the Canadian and Ontario governments to take all necessary measures to protect Ontario's interests in trade negotiations and to ensure municipalities are included in the coordinated response. And further, that the County of Renfrew supports efforts to remove barriers that limit municipalities' ability to reject U.S. suppliers in procurement while ensuring fair and transparent trade practices. And further, that the warden be directed to convene a meeting of the Renfrew County Economic Task Force consisting of businesses, municipal economic development officers, municipal representatives, chambers of commerce, and other identified parties to develop a County of Renfrew tariff response plan. And further, the County of Renfrew continue to support local businesses, industries, and workforce through the efforts of the Economic Development Department, including a Buy Local, Buy Canadian campaign, and a review of the County of Renfrew procurement options that support the Canadian economy. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, the County of Peterborough, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, local municipalities of Renfrew County, and relevant federal and provincial representatives. A mover, please. And the member from Bollinger Valley.
I'm hoping the last time.
Thank you. And seconded by the member from Renfrew. And I see the member from Amherst Brownlee. Oh, I don't see them. Okay, thank you. Comments? Yes, Mr. Kelly, please.
Sorry, just a bit of a clarification. So there is a motion on the floor to substitute the original motion with the motion you just read out. So to clarify, the first motion that needs to be passed is the motion to substitute, or the agreement to substitute, and then a motion to introduce the motion you just read, and then both need to be discussed and then voted upon.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, could we have a motion?
I believe you actually do have a mover on the motion to substitute. I believe that was taken, which was Councillor Murphy, and then I think the second was Armfire, I believe. My notes are right, and then discuss the substitution, or the right to substitute that motion, and then again vote on that, and then the introduction of the motion you just read would be appropriate with the necessary mover and seconder.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I would
Why
take...
don't you have a different mover then? Because I'm the mover on the resolution.
Okay, so if we could have a mover to substitute, and so we'll have the member from Whitewater, second by a member from Amherst Bromley, and discussion on substituting the second motion I read versus the first motion. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you. And now to the motion that I just read, the substitute motion. We had a mover from Bonshire Valley, seconded by Arnprior. And discussion, please. Okay, and member from Whitewater, please.
Thank you, Chair. And a full support of the motion. I'm not proposing any changes, just an endorsement of it. One area that I was hoping we might consider in terms of how we might address this going forward, especially with our proposed task force, is the element of communication. And what I'm finding, and I don't know if it's the same for all of I'm checking Facebook, I'm checking news feeds, I'm listening to the radio. People are pulling stuff, off of news feeds because they're not sure if it's correct. It's really difficult to keep a finger on the pulse here of what's going on and what is the official situation, whether that's provincially or federally. And I'm concerned that if we now go into a federal election cycle or there's other elements, there's still going to be this vacuum in terms of communication. And I would just like to propose that if nothing more, we focus a main effort on communication so that we as the leadership in the community know what's going on. Maybe it's a summary. I'd like to say we could do that every 2 weeks, but I mean, it changed 3 times in the last 24 hours. I'm not sure what the right situation or the right proposal is, but communication we should be able to look to one organization to provide us with a current update as to what's going on. I'm wondering if that could be the county.
Thank you. And I agree, and that's been part of our internal conversations is, we've sat down to talk about this a couple of times, and in the hour, it's changed in the middle of our meeting. And so we recognize that, yes, there should be one spot to check information, and that's one of the things that we'll be talking about internally before we even get this task force together. Amherst Bromley and then Bonshire Valley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. And very sensitive to Councillor Nicholson's comments. The challenge, I think, is even the officials would say it is impossible for them to have an official position. And one has to be very careful in putting out any announcement because the rug could be pulled out from under you in 15 minutes, not tomorrow, not a week from now. We are now in a situation where the threat of the tariffs was first made in January, and then they were suspended for the month of February, and then they were announced for the month of March, and then suspended for the month of March. And then they were going to be 25% on aluminum and steel, and then possibly 50% on aluminum and steel, and then back to 25% on aluminum and steel. Subsequent to that, the European Union has now announced reciprocal tariffs on $28 billion worth of goods of Americans. The Bank of Canada just this morning, Tiff Macklem, the governor, announced another quarter-point change in the Bank of Canada's interest rate. Make no mistake that there are dark clouds that are forming, and this is going to take a very careful and nuanced and serious approach to what is before us. As I'd indicated a couple of weeks ago, the challenge is that we have had stability for 80 years, and the underpinnings, almost every one of the pillars that have suspended or supported the relative safety and security of the country for the last 80 years are now being threatened. I don't know that it is going to advance much beyond that, but the President of the United States is committed to tariffs. He sees this as the means of funding their government activities. He wants to roll the clock back to the First World War of the last century, wherein there were no income taxes, and typically it was customs and duties that funded government activities. That is risible that is not possible, and yet that is what we are confronted with. The challenge is for all of us, including those sitting in the room, including those sitting in Premier Ford's cabinet office, including of currently Prime Minister Trudeau, soon to be Prime Minister Carney, for how long I do not know, but sitting in that cabinet office. They are as confounded as we are, as the members of our public are. What I would counsel is simply do find a reliable source of information, and notwithstanding that the mainstream media have been dragged through the mud over the course of about the last half a dozen years, they are still the most reliable means of information available, and unfortunately it does change by the hour. So for those particularly that have a direct impact from this, everyone is going to be impacted from this. For those who have a direct impact, it is now one of the things that you must stay on top of. From my farming business, I've always had to stay on top of what the price of cattle are. Now I also understand I have to stay on top of what is the next whim of the 47th President of the United States.
Thank you. And Bonchevali, please.
Thank you, Warden, and I agree with both of my colleagues. I think that when, unfortunately, CB24 and CBC can't keep up, we're never going to keep up, even if we had a stable of communication staff. That being said, AMO and FCM are trying their best to relay information. I don't know about any of my colleagues. I have ceased putting anything on my social media because as sure as I'm sitting here, I will put something out and it will change after lunch. I left for a doctor's appointment yesterday morning knowing that these tariffs were being increased, and by the time I got home, Ford was then meeting with Lutnick and everything was being suspended, including the tariffs on electricity. So I don't even know how we keep up. I think that my hope is that by next week we will find some semblance of normalcy in a very abnormal time. But that being said, I don't know how we... Thanks for that. I don't know how we communicate when, even as our colleague, Councillor Donahue said, the mainstream media can't keep up. We are never going to. And my fear is that we will look foolish putting things out that change within, a 2 hour, 1 hour, 15-minute period. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? Seeing none, we have a motion. All of those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you. Are there any announcements? Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. A member from Amherst Bromley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. And I thought that your remarks this morning were incredibly elegant and eloquent with respect to the passing of our colleague, Jamie Bramberger. I could not, while you were saying that, I even thought how unfortunate that often the candle that burns the brightest burns shorter than all of the others. And I think that is so with Mr. Bramberger. I can think of no one that has fully represented the community that he lived in for almost his entire life. So I certainly want to express my regrets on his passing and my sympathies to his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further announcements, we'll move to new business. And Mr. Davis, please.
Thank you, Warden, and good morning, County Councillor. So I'm pleased to announce that the county has finalized the purchase of the 330 Boundary Road. So you may recall that a number of closed meetings we had to work on this purchase. Again, for the viewing public, we've been working on a purchase to replace the existing structure of the paramedic base that's currently at the Pembroke Regional Hospital. And at that, with a direction from you and the elected, we did complete the purchase at 330 Boundary Road in the city of Pembroke. To be converted into a new paramedic base. So the existing structure at the hospital is around 5,000 square feet. What you see in the screen there, thank you, Tina, is what the existing building looks like currently, about 10,000 square feet. And I want to thank our CAO, our real estate team of Kevin Raditz, Dennis Lazary, and the paramedic team of Chief Nolan to support this purchase. And the concept, what we'll do is we've learned a lot for the Eganville paramedic base when we converted an old garage into a new paramedic base. Similar to this, this structure you see on the screen, we'll be doing the same thing. But the first step was to purchase this, the property in this building to move forward. So congratulations on the team that did this. I thought this was the hard work, but the real hard work is about to begin with the hiring of a whole team to look at this, what the needs will be from the paramedic team of Chief Noland and his team to see what they require within the structure, and then to do the renovation. So we're working on a bit of a media release. This just happened late last week, and so we're just a good news story overall. Thank you, Warden.
Thank you. And I think it shouldn't go without stressing that one of the lessons we learned when we took an existing structure in Eganville and renovated it was that there was an overall savings compared to building new. And I think we'll see, that's the premise for this one as well. I would also like to steal a little bit of Mr. Davis's future thunder. We may have some more announcements about paramedics and service locations in the future. One step at a time. He's never known me to push him. Are there any further announcements? No. Member from Petawawa, please, who's been quite patient.
Thank you, Warden, and through you. I'd just like to extend a thank you from the town of Petawawa to Director Davis and Director Patrick for coming to our first ever development summit and giving us a very informative presentation and helping to make our day a success. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It's always good to hear that meaning the County of Renfrew, is getting out and informing people about our initiatives. I know we try in chambers to get the information out, but it's much more effective, I think, in groups where people that aren't familiar with it ask very different questions and often will force us to be clearer than we are after we've condensed the message down because we've heard it 27 times before. Are there any other new business? Are there any other announcements of new business? Sorry, that was a terrible way to do it. And I'd like to apologize for council for messing up earlier and taking you on that history lesson of the old resolution and the new resolution. Please feel free to interrupt me. I'm not offended by that. So with that, we'll move to resolutions that the bylaws listed be deemed read 3 times and passed. Can I have a mover, please? And the mover is Petawawa, and seconder is Laurentian Valley. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None is carried. Thank you. And resolution for the confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw 33-25 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the County of Renfrew at the meeting held on March 12th, 2025, be now numbered, deemed read 3 times and passed. Mover, please. I have a member from Kilheggy Richards, and seconder is the member from Head Clara Mariah. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None is carried. Thank you. Just before adjournment, I'd like to I'd like to ask council and staff to look around at the people in the room with you here and at home and in the community. We have many roles, and because of those roles, we have pressures. And you're not alone. Your pressures sometimes are self-driven. Sometimes they're assumed because of the roles we take in the community. And we have the pressures of our families and our relationships in the community, our roles as leaders in our community, our roles as leaders on the staff complement here, and our professional roles and pressures. So you're not alone. You can reach out at any time. We have many relationships we can draw on and that we should draw on, because that's part of relationships, is our willingness to support each other. And so I just want to pass that on as we're thinking about things that have occurred and could occur. And so you're not alone. Reach out. We can find solutions. You don't have to have all the solutions all the time. We don't expect you to have the solutions all the time. We do ask that you look for solutions in partnership with others. So with that, I'd like to ask that County Council, a motion to adjourn County Council at 10:25. So we have the member from Amsden Bromley, seconded by the member from Laurentian Hills. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None? It's carried. Thank you. And I would suggest a review in public. We will resume with Committee of the Whole at approximately 10:45. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Health Committee. It is Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. It is 10:45 a.m. I am calling today's meeting to order. I would begin, Ms. Van Starkenburg. Can you confirm the roll has been called, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and we have quorum.
We have quorum, thank you. I would invite at this point any disclosure of pecuniary interest, and if there is any, the general nature thereof, please. I see none. I'd now seek a motion to approve the Health Committee minutes of February 12th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Weir, seconded by Councillor Murphy. Any errors or omissions, committee? I see none. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Likewise, I'd now seek the recommendations of the Board of Health minutes for January 28th, 2025 be noted and received as well. I would seek a mover, please. Councillor Brose, seconded by Councillor Mayville. Once again, well, I can't say any errors or omissions. I have no idea. Any questions or comments? I see none. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. There were no delegations or presentations at the time of the dissemination of this report, including the report of just yesterday, so I would presume that there is no change from that, and Mr. Kelly, your silence will confirm that for me. With that, I'm moving on then to communications. I see none. With that, then, we're moving along here with some speed this morning. Consent reports. We will begin with, on page 10, you will find the long-term care consent report. I would yield the floor to Mr. Blackmore, please.
Thank you, Chair Donahue. Good morning to committee. There's two items for consent. The first being the AbbVie Care long-term care program. Very excited to be fortunate to take part in this initiative, whereby 15 residents at Bonnechere Manor, 20 residents at Miramichi Lodge are eligible to receive free Botox treatment for contractures brought on by either brain injury from stroke or spinal cord injury. So this will go a long way with regard to help maintaining function, reducing pain. We're fortunate to have Dr. Ramana Apridi coming up from Kingston to commence our clinics very soon. The second item is a Ministry of Labor inspection at Miramichi Lodge, resulting from an incident where we had a staff member with a slip and fall. That particular incident was inspected with no findings, but upon inspecting the building and finding a few step stools in our housekeeping closets, it was determined that our housekeeping staff require ladder training, so that is commenced. And in addition, an individual was not wearing eye protection. So training happened the day of and is continued within that department.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blackmore. Before we go to the Emergency Services Consent Report, I would seek any questions or comments on the long-term care consent. Item 1, any comments? Questions? I see none. Item 2. I see none. With that, then, once again, we are moving with some urgency. I would like to very much warmly welcome Deputy Chief Nick Larish this morning, or as he says, the proper pronunciation is Larish, but in Newfoundland and the Ottawa Valley, it is pronounced Larish. And he is no longer acting as a Deputy Chief. He is, in fact, a Deputy Chief for the County of Renfrew Paramedic Service. And he is here to deliver the emergency services reports this morning. So, Deputy Chief Larish, take it away on the consent report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. So we have 3 items on our committee discussion report today.
Actually, the consent report first will be the announcement on the emergency
transfer or treatment fund.
Yes, okay. Transfer fund. If you wanted to speak to that, please.
So we received notification yesterday, and there was an addendum to the Health Committee consent report through the Emergency Services Department for emergency treatment funding. The Emergency Services Department submitted a funding proposal for Health Canada's new emergency treatment fund. This will provide urgent, targeted funding to municipalities and Indigenous communities to support rapid responses to the overdose crisis. Funding will address urgent and immediate needs as defined by the communities to bolster local capacity and provide access to culturally appropriate, trauma-informed, and evidence-based programs and services. So attached in the report, you will see the letter that was provided, I believe, yesterday. We are awaiting further information and details next week, and we should have that clarity for the next report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief. Any questions or comments? Councillor Nicholson, please.
Thanks, Chair. And I just got triggered on one of the comments there in a positive sense. The funding that we could potentially receive through this EFT funding, it's indicated in the title of the application that it had to do with MESA. Is there any implications that this might have for a 2025 budget that was made for MESA, depending on what comes through and how the funds might be spent?
I would yield the floor. I think within the body of the letter, there is not a specific dollar amount of funding. I think that information is to follow, but perhaps, Deputy Chief, you could provide some context for Councillor Nicholson.
That's correct. We are waiting next week for further information, but the body of the letter does describe Renfrew County Substance Use, Mental Health, and Housing MESA Systems Integrated Navigation Tool, and that will be following the project funding for the 2025-26 federal fiscal year.
Follow-up, Councillor Nicholson.
Sorry, and just to clarify, it's not replacing funding we had already budgeted for and are going to tax for. This is for a project on top of what's been already approved in our annual budget.
Deputy Chief, please.
No, that's correct. It's additional.
Thank you. Anything further? Enormously pleased to once again have recognized what is being done in this community with respect to homelessness, mental health, and substance use issues. Very pleased at this, so I do provide a little bit of carve out here, as committee is wholly aware that I rank late-breaking addendums to reports right up there with visits to the proctologist or the dentist. However, when there is going to be money coming along, I do make exception for that, so very pleased to hear that. With that, then, there are no further items for the consent reports. I would now seek a motion that the consent reports be received as information, please. Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Grills. Further and final opportunity for any questions. All in favor? That is carried. Exceptional. Moving on then to discussion reports, and once again, we will lead off with the long-term care discussion report. Mr. Blackmore, once again, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Donahue. I'll read the resolution, Quality Improvement Plan. Recommendation that the Health Committee recommends that County Council authorize the Warden, Chief Administrative Officer, Administrator, Director of Long-Term Care, and Quality Improvement Committee Chair, Director of Care, to sign and submit the quality improvement plans for Bonnechere Manor and Miramichi Lodge to Health Quality Ontario before the March 31, 2025 deadline.
I'd seek a mover, please. Councillor Service, seconded by Councillor Lynch. There is background, but I do believe you also have a PowerPoint. I will yield it to whatever order you feel is appropriate, Mr. Blackmore.
Thank you, Chair. Through the committee, background, Ontario Health, Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Long-Term Care continue to align quality improvement efforts to better reflect current priorities and health system changes, and requires the submission of an annual quality improvement plan. A QIP, Quality Improvement Plan, is a formal documented set of commitments that a health care organization makes to its residents, staff, and community to improve quality through focused targets and actions. QIPs are used in many sectors to assist organizations in delivering quality programs and services. Ontario Health defines satisfaction survey and the resident assessment instrument minimum data set. The Director of Long-Term Care will overview the draft quality improvement plans for 25-26 at this meeting. The QIP plans for each homes are attached in the report. And Tina, if I could, just to have a brief PowerPoint kind of bringing together both homes quality improvement plans sort of on the same page. So I just wanted to say thank you to Director of Care Nancy Lemire and Acting Director of Care Quinn Lurie for their help, their work in putting together the plan in conjunction with our continuous quality improvement committees at both homes, which consists of family council representation, resident council representation, frontline staff, medical director, our pharmacy, physiotherapists, nursing staff, PSWs, truly an interdisciplinary team. And where am I pointing this, Tina? Back here? Oh. Okay, starting with the first slide, or the first indicator, one of the priority indicators indicated by the province, that of the avoidance of emergency department visits for what are 17 specific care-sensitive preventable conditions. Just to give you a flavor for some, they range from angina, asthma, cellulitis, congestive obstructive pulmonary disease, congestive heart failure, dehydration, dental conditions, diabetes, gastroenteritis, seizures, hypertension, hypoglycemia, injury from falls, mental and behavior disorders, pneumonia, and severe ear, nose, and throat conditions. So the premise is that the home should be treating these conditions to the point where an ED visit is preventable. And to note that the provincial average right now is at 21.7%, and the Manor's slightly over at 24.4. Miramichi Lodge is about half the provincial average at 11.7, and we're undertaking similar interventions to get us down or maintain below provincial average. The first intervention takes full advantage of the recent enrollment and active participation in the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario clinical care pathways for both resident admission and assessments toward informing more informed goals of care. So essentially, it's identifying when meeting with families, what are the expectations with regard to care, and at what point in time, is a transfer to hospital desired or necessary, informed with discussions with our nurse practitioners and medical directors and attending physicians. The second is that of our nurse practitioner playing a critical role in partnership with the medical director to basically be that much more available to manage those changes in condition. And we're very fortunate in that, as you're well aware, both homes now have their own full-time nurse practitioner toward that endeavor. The third intervention represents an ongoing focus toward collaborating with the resident and the substitute decision maker toward making sure that the goals are informed and accurate in terms of goals of care. And fourthly, as is the process when we're looking at these statistics, to get reviewed on a quarterly basis with the CQI teams I'd alluded to earlier, just with regard to any trends, analysis, or opportunities for improvement. The next indicator is percentage of residents who fell during the 30 days preceding their resident assessment. Provincial average right now is at 16.5%. The Manor is running at 6.99, the Lodge at 20.3, and we're endeavoring to get below the provincial average. Our first initiative that's underway is, again, we've recently enrolled with our Registered Nurses Association of Ontario clinical best practice guidelines, for which falls reduction is one of those. So we're endeavoring to put those practices into place. Secondly, is we undergo immediate review of and analysis of falls and injury during multidisciplinary high-risk rounds, and quarterly analysis I alluded to earlier with regard to the CQI meetings. And three, ongoing consultation with family regarding balance between the promotion of fall prevention and mobility, considered of the dignity of risk. So keeping in mind that, yes, the number of the falls may be up or below provincial average, but mobility comes with risk. And if we're going to endeavor to allow residents the freedom to move about and not be restrained, for which neither home have any restraints, not zero physical restraints in either home, then one might expect to see your fall rates go up slightly. The next indicator is percentage of residents who are prescribed an antipsychotic without a diagnosis of psychosis with the 7 days preceding their last assessment. So The provincial average is 20.1, so both homes are performing below provincial average, but we continue to endeavor. It's our philosophy of both homes that medication for psychosis, non-psychosis is the last resort. So we have to endeavor to ensure that each and every non-pharmacological approach is being utilized before we engage in any kind of medication to manage responsive behaviors. So part of that is a stringent quarterly review of medications by the nurse practitioner, the attending physicians, as well as in consultation with our pharmacists, and reviewing trends. And again, as I've mentioned, the emphasis on the ongoing team approach toward employing non-pharmacological approaches to manage responsive behaviors. That is done with our frontline staff or physicians. We're fortunate to have funding from what's called Behavior Supports Ontario as well. So that's a fund that specifically assists the homes to engage what we call BSO, PSWs that are trained to give consideration to non-pharmacological interventions and have the time to more closely examine the plan of care for that purpose, and work very closely with our geriatric mental health outreach team, which employs a psychogeriatrician as well. So we're, again, it all goes back to last resort when it comes to these kind of medications. And to keep in mind that where you see numbers approaching 20% for antipsychotic use, they do have other purposes as well. Like I said, namely for those very difficult to manage responsive behaviors, and as well as they're used for end-of-life care as well, for reduced agitation. And again, as is typical with the other indicators, this is one of the indicators that's tracked and reviewed with the CQI team on a quarterly basis. And the fourth indicator is the percentage of pressure ulcers that worsen to a stage 2, 3, or 4 since their previous assessment. Just for your purposes of knowing what a stage 1, 2, 3, 4 are. Stage 1 basically is a reddened area where the skin's not yet broken. Stage 2, there's a break in skin in the top 2 layers. Stage 3 affects the top 2 layers of skin and potentially into fatty tissue. Stage 4 are deep wounds that may impact muscle, tendon, ligaments, and more. So provincial average is 2.3. The matter is currently under the provincial average at 2.1. I should have noted earlier when I started, we picked up a few errors in the quality improvement plan itself. Some of the stats indicators were wrong. So anything that's in blue is the corrected number and will appear in the second version of the quality improvement plan that goes forward to county council, corrected.
And just so you will find that there are some numbers, the accurate numbers that are being presented in the PowerPoint may be inconsistent with what has been delivered in the agenda packages, and that's what Mr. Blackmore is referring to as well. These are the correct data points.
So again, with our recent signing on with the Registered Nurse Association, clinical pathways, wound care is one of those care pathways we're looking at as well, hoping to take full advantage of all that the RNAO has to offer there. We're improving our accuracy of wound staging. So where we're at this indicator, it tracks when a wound is moved from one stage to the next. We have to make sure that we're assessing that and recording it properly. This is as important as, I mean, when stats go garbage in, garbage out, you have to make sure that your stats are accurate. So we're reinforcing training where that's concerned. And just keep in mind, it only given the low prevalence of residents in either home that have a stage 2 or 4, 2 to 4, one person moving from a stage 1 to a stage 2 can significantly alter the statistics. So another thing we're doing is enhanced documentation through use of photographic, like actually taking photos as we track wound care progression. and some expanded education for PSW staff in terms of early detection of pressure ulcers before they get to a stage 2 where they're reddened. And Chair, that's a brief overview of the QUIPs. Please take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Blackmore. I'm just finding my place back here again. So the recommendation is that the Health Committee recommends and that County Council authorize the Warden, Chief Administrative Officer, Administrative Director of Long-Term Care and Quality Improvement Committee Chair, Director of Care to sign and submit the quality improvement plans, QIPs, for Bonashire Manor and Miramichi Lodge to Health Quality Ontario before the March 31st, 2025 deadline. I would seek a mover, please. Sorry, I am not doing this properly.
Sorry, Chair, we already have a mover and a seconder.
Oh, we have moved and seconded
Correct.
that. Thank you. My error. Any further any questions or comments? Councillor Nicholson, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just two that came up just as part of the presentation, and thank you for the presentation. I know it's a very complex set of quality indicators, especially for non-medical, but two things that came to mind. The first one was with the emergency room visits. Is it possible for a family member to remove someone from care and take them to emergency? Is that tracked as well, or is this just emergency room evacuations that are done by the long-term care home?
Mr. Blackmore, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through to Councillor Nicholson. Yeah, if a family member were to take their loved one to the emergency room, it would be counted as a transfer.
Follow-up, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. Perfect. And the second one is just, I think it was item number, the previous one to this, where we talked about the anti-psychosis medication. And I noticed it talked about 7 days in a period 7 days prior to the residential assessment. I don't understand why 7 days is picked or that reference point. Is there some kind of indicator that you can share with us on it, or is it just that's what's provided by the province?
Once again, Mr. Blackmore, please.
Thank you, Chair. To Councillor Nicholson. Yeah, that's basically the MDS I spoke to earlier, the RIMDS. That's the tool, and that's the assessment they're speaking of. And that indicator basically tracks where an individual is taking, I think it's at least one dose of that particular medication in that 7-day period.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Murphy and then Warden Emo.
Thank you, Chair. And I think I've asked this question years ago, but I'm going to ask it again. In our percentages, and percentages are great, but it's hard to tell whether or not this is one person that's fallen multiple times over a time frame that you're assessed on, or is it several people that have fallen that fall into that percentage? And I think that there would be merit in having actual numbers of how many of these patients. I know that's not your mandate, that's not what the province is looking for, but I think for us it would be interesting to know, because I mean, this winter alone I've fallen 3 times. I'd be your whole percentage of fallen people. So just an idea.
Yeah, I think I will invite Mr. Blackmore, but I think actually we are responding to a template that the province provides, which unfortunately is somewhat restrictive. Mr. Blackmore, care to add?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. To the councillor. So this particular statistic doesn't count the total number of falls. It's the number of people who have fallen. Oh. Yeah, because you're right. We could have an individual that might fall, which we have a special classification, frequent fallers, that require some very intensive examination with regard to how to keep them from injuring themselves as a priority. So this stat though, it just speaks to the number of people versus the number of.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you.
And I think as well, Councillor Murphy, there is a Canadian manufacturer now of bubble wrap outerwear. Perhaps you might want to consider that. Warden,
I was going to say, Chair, if they figure out how to get these people to stop falling, maybe they could send that my way, please.
Thank you. When I look at the the verbiage around provider experience, where it talks about that the home has hired 20 international workers, and I don't think we've had an issue, but I think other homes have had issues across Ontario with agency staff and the quality of care and stuff like that. So I'm curious that is that something that we should be measuring since we've identified that we're going to have 20 international workers? Should we also be identifying and I think if I recall correctly, we're not planning on using any agency staff this year. So, and maybe that's something that should be identified in there, or if we were going to, how would we track? Because I know there's been some issues around agency workers.
Mr. Blackmore.
Thank you, Chair, to the Warden. So yeah, our agency numbers are depleted sufficiently to the point where I think we're near having zero coming up in a few months. I can't recall off the top of my head. Did we make mention of agency in the report?
No. I was just pointing it out that I was curious as to why we mentioned 20 workers, international workers, but we didn't mention the agency. But then, as I was asking you the question, I remembered that during budget you'd said we wouldn't be using any this year or virtually none.
Yeah, I think in that instance, I think we're just trying to demonstrate our efforts to get our recruitment up and being innovative in terms of hiring international.
Thank you.
And again, so this is very specific, the data that is being gathered by Health Quality Ontario in this instance, though I think that there is certainly merit, Warden, in that there are other data points that we can keep independent of Health Quality Ontario that is also presenting a more fulsome picture, perhaps, of long-term care in Ontario. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. With that then, once again, Deputy Chief Larish, I will pass it to you for the long-term care discussion report. Sorry, for the emergency services. No, sorry. We are still on long-term care. Sleep at the switch. God, I was doing so well. Anyway, back to you for item B. Please, Mr. Blackmore.
Thank you, Chair. Through the committee, a bylaw, number 2, long-term care service accountability agreement. A recommendation that the Health Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to amend bylaw 59-23 to authorize the Warden and Chief Administrative Officer to sign extending letters for the extension of the long-term care service accountability agreements from March 31, 2025 until March 31, 2026 between Ontario Health and each of Bonnechere Manor and Miramichi Lodge.
Thank you. Thank you. Once again, I would seek a mover. Councillor Brose, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Background, please. No, there isn't any background.
Just short statement.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chair. Background, Bonnechere Manor and Miramichi Lodge each entered into a long-term care service accountability agreement with Ontario Health and are requesting the extending letters for the extension of the ELSAs for each of Bonnechere Manor and Miramichi Lodge from March 31, 2025 until March 31, 2026 to be executed and submitted by the deadline of March 28, 2025.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, committee? Just one. It seems that we just did a very short-term extension, which I think that was the outlier. I think this is the more typical renewal. Can you just speak to that? Am I correct, or
I'm not sure if maybe through Chair, if you're speaking of the declaration of compliance that we just signed.
Maybe that's what it was. Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And on to MSA, then, please, Mr. Blackmore.
Thank you, Chair. A multi-sector service accountability agreement, MSA, Bonnechere Manor Senior Adult Day Program. A recommendation that the Health Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to amend bylaw 60-23 to authorize the Warden and Chief Administrative Officer to sign the extending letter for the extension of the multi-sector service accountability agreement from March 31, 2025 to March 31, 2026 between Ontario Health and Bonnechere Manor Senior Adult Day Program.
And once again, I would seek a mover and a seconder. Councillor Lafreniere has moved it. Councillor Yon has seconded. Any background you wish to report to Mr. Blackwell?
Thank you, Chair. Background, Bonnechere Manor has been operating the Senior Adult Day Program in Renfrew since February 1997. For the continuation of ministry funding for the Bonnechere Manor Senior Adult Day Program, Ontario Health is requesting extending a letter for the extension of the multi-sector service accountability agreement from March 31, 2025 until March 31, 26 to be executed and submitted by the deadline of March 28, 2025.
Thank you very much. Once again, committee, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And Ms. Van Starkenburg, do I need a report as a whole, or is that on the culmination of the full discussion report? Okay, thank you. I am receiving the nod. I can confirm that it is the latter of the two. With that then, now Deputy Chief Flourish, the floor is now yours for the Emergency Services discussion report.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. So we have 3 recommendations. Number 1, the renewal of the 911 primary public safety answering point. The recommendation that the Health Committee recommends that County Council adopt a revised bylaw to accept the service agreement between the County of Renfrew and the Ontario Provincial Police for renewal of the 911 primary public safety answering point service agreement, and that bylaw 148-24 be repealed.
Thank you. Once again, I would seek a mover, please. Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Giardini. The other Laurentian. Background, please.
The original agreement had a 5-year term for renewal on it, and the intent was to have an indefinite term. So we would be removing that 5-year language.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. On to item 2, please.
Item 2, drug analysis project. That the Health Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to enter into a collaborative agreement with the County of Renfrew, the University of Western Ontario, and Scatter Incorporated to participate in a Leading the Way People with Living and Lived Experiences at the Forefront of Drug Checking initiative designed and developed by Western University's research team.
Thank you once again, Deputy Chief. And committee, a mover, please. Councillor Weir, seconded by Councillor Lynch. Background.
This is an exciting initiative. Partnership, it opens the doors to not only providing our paramedics with the ability to have real-time drug information and influencing treatment plans. It would be one of 12 drug testing units in Ontario that provide 15-minute results immediately. Not only for informing paramedics, it would be ideal for engagement with these communities and populations. It would be informative for them, and also the research side provide public health and the research team with predictability models on the drugs in the community.
Thank you very much. I think it's outstanding, and yet more information that can fill in a lot of gaps that we have in our intelligence gathering on, once again, the scourge that has befallen us with respect to homelessness, mental health, and substance use. Questions or comments? Councillor Lafreniere, then Councillor Brose.
Yes, through the chair, just further to that, the drug checking. So you would say that if you come upon an individual who is in crisis, you could check to see what kind of drugs are in their system on the spot? Is that what I'm hearing?
Deputy Chief, please.
You wouldn't be checking what's in their system. You'd be checking the concentration or the product that they have in their possession as an informative basis.
So in their possession, not necessarily ingested or inhaled?
No, correct. That would be left for the hospital or
Okay.
lab testing.
Okay, but it might give you an idea what you're dealing with and how to treat them there.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that there is a substantial overlap in those two issues. Whatever is probably found on the person is probably found in the person. Councillor Brose, then Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question is in regards to, and congratulations, this sounds like a really, really exciting program. Is this something that our medical officer of health and that team is also partners with the county, or is the county standalone in this initiative?
Deputy Chief.
So this initiative goes through quite the vetting process. It is, I'll just pull it up here. So this would be all Health Canada approved, and not only solely under the direction of the County of Renfrew and Western University, but it must follow all like the legislation for controlled substances and handling, storage, anything like that, to ensure that we're following all the legal aspects.
Follow up, Councillor Brose.
Thank you. I guess my question was more along the line, is the Board of Health going to be a partner in this, or is it mostly county-driven?
Once again, Deputy.
Yeah. I'm sure there will be a partnership with them, but we will be leading this initiative.
Thank you. I think that what we have been experiencing, particularly with Mesa, is this is an all hands on deck. So whether formal or informal, I cannot imagine that that the Board of Health would not be engaged substantially in this. It will be Councillor Murphy and then Councillor Service, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I assumed that it was just the agreement was with the County of Renfrew. I am very pleased to see this. I will say that in 2023, the warden and I attended a Roma retreat in Thunder Bay, where we were toured around a clinic facility that had just started using testing such as this, and they had already seen a rapid reduction in not all drugs, but in serious fentanyl tainted drugs that are out on the streets. And I think that although we never want to have to use it, it is a reality now. And I am thrilled to see that we were one of 12, I'm going to call us beta testing centers. I think that through MESA, our paramedic service, the health unit, and our hospitals, I think it is going to do a lot for our community. I am thrilled to know also that this is also an initiative that included people that are living with and have lived experience. I think that those people that suffer from mental illness, drug addiction, eating disorders, homelessness, I think it always is an asset to have somebody on the committee, on the panel, on whatever, that has the lived experience, that knows boots on the ground how it feels. So again, congratulations. I think this is an excellent initiative.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Service, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, I think it's a great initiative and partnership, and it will help reduce the amount of harm that comes to our vulnerable population. My question is about the device and the computer and the training that would have to take place, I guess, to use it. Are all of our paramedics going to be trained, or just a certain number, to ensure that the device is always accessible? And then a follow-up, how is it going to be allocated across the county?
Deputy Chief, please.
Thank you for the question. So through you, Chair, there will be specific paramedics trained for the use of this device through Western University, and the application for how the transport and storage of that is still under process. We have 3 proposals in for how it will be stored and how we will distribute that unit itself throughout the county. It's a very small unit itself, so it's not like we need a big space, but we do need to meet the regulations and requirements of Western University and then any of the acts that we fall under.
Councillor Weir, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Putting on my old hat of ex-copper, we see that marijuana is being laced with fentanyl and the trends in specific areas for that. Will this, or where will this data be shared to look towards a root cause of where the tainted drugs are coming from. Is there any indication that this will be shared?
Deputy Chief, please.
Yeah, this information will be shared once the reporting processes have been completed, the drugs have been shipped back for drug analysis. Those reports are going to be shared to the local health units and for trending analysis. And basically information sharing, because we'll need that to, yeah, go ahead.
A follow-up, please, Councillor Weir.
Yeah, just a supplemental through you, Chair. My concern is if we're seeing a spike in a certain drug, I'm looking to see how we get back to the root cause of distribution. And if there's a trend in a certain area or region, will this be shared with the enforcement authorities to say that we have a problem in an area, to focus on it?
Deputy Chief.
Through you, Chair, I'm not entirely sure the reporting process from Western University out to the law enforcement agencies, but that will be public information, is what I'm aware of for.
Thank you. So ultimately, I believe what Councillor Weir is referring to, so there is, of course, the human aspect of those that are dealing with tainted or perhaps overdose, but also there is the interdiction of trying to detect how these are coming into our communities and by means of which, so perhaps through Western University, there are protocols of how widely this is shared. Councillor Lafreniere, follow-up?
Yeah, just a follow-up. I think it would be difficult to know where it's coming from just because of this. But I think what we can take from this is that we could possibly, the health unit would put out an alert saying that this has been found, in marijuana, certain types of chemicals. It may deter those who are using to maybe switch to something safer. I don't know. I wanted to specifically ask, though, how will the people with living and lived experience be involved in this drug checking? I mean, I know there's already a committee set up with several members and some that sit maybe around this table that have the different agencies there, and they have individuals living with the with lived experience. Is this going to be in partnership with that committee that already exists?
If I may first, what you're referring to, Councillor Lafreniere, is the Renfrew County District Drug Strategy Steering Committee. That is anticipating, I think, early in Q2 with a, I don't want to be very careful, I don't want to be out in front of this. I don't know if it will be a final report or a draft final report. It is in each of the 4 pillars there's some meat being put on the bones as we are speaking with a view towards having a very comprehensive drug strategy. But I think in answer to an earlier question, I don't know at this point there is a direct and formal relationship with Western University. It doesn't appear that there are direct engagement with the drug strategy steering committee, though I cannot imagine that there is not going to be a lot of knowledge exchange that is going to make this work much better. I don't know. Did you want to add anything to that, Deputy Chief?
Thanks through you, Chair. The initial information we have from Western University is that there will be meetings set up with specific individuals with lived experiences, secondary to those who have been drug tested. So that will be another aspect of this research project.
Okay, thank you very much.
To complement the initial research.
Thank you. If there are no more questions, I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on then to item 3, the ZOL 1 defibrillator lease agreement. Deputy Chief.
Through you, Chair, the final recommendation that the Health Committee recommends the County Council adopt a revised bylaw authorizing the lease of 3 additional ZOL 1 program monitor defibrillator units from ZOL Medical Canada Incorporated, and that bylaw 30-24 be repealed.
Thank you. Once again, a mover, please. Councillor Murphy, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Background.
So in February 2024, bylaw 30-24, we passed that authorizing the lease agreement with ZOL to have 35 units in the service. We're asking for an additional 3. This would support the expansion of Mesa and our VTAC centers, as well as meeting our provincial obligations to provide the paramedics with the most appropriate equipment that they're trained on, and also serve the community with the Zoll Advanced Series monitor.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I wonder, sorry, go ahead, Warden Ema.
Yeah, just from my memory, I believe these are on-site units. They're not, are they mobile units that go in our units?
Through Chair, these are mobile units that can be used universally throughout the whole service and will follow the same benefits of the lease program that we have signed up for.
Yeah, I think it's important to underscore as well. Committee will recall, or certainly those who were sitting on committee then, but I think it even came to council. There was a substantial change in how, in the acquisition or procurement of the defibrillators beginning, I think, in 2024, just last year, where typically it had been a capital expenditure. And in this instance, that they are being leased does make it an operating expense that the province is participating on in a real time. 5149, whereas when it was a capital expenditure, it was amortized on a different sliding scale by the province of Ontario, so the funding was always trailing. Ultimately, this is, in answer, or perhaps in providing a little bit more context to your question, Warden Emo, this is the expansion of those by 3 more units. Further questions or comments? I just wonder, and kind of similar to the funding announcement from Health Canada as well, Deputy Chief, it does note here that coverage of this cost will be supported in part by the Substance Use and Addictions Program. The number isn't here, so I'm going to suggest that perhaps is that still to be determined, or do you have a notion of what sort of percentage of this may be funded through grant money that is extant?
Through you, Chair, that's still to be determined.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it for me. Once final opportunity. Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And now, I think that wraps up, it does, this portion of today's festivities. With that, then, I would invite a motion to accept the discussion report, please. Councillor Service, seconded by Councillor Grills. A further and final opportunity for any question. Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. There were no deferred reports. No verbal reports were identified at the time of mailing. I see none. There was no closed session at the time of mailing. I think I would probably have been informed if that had changed. Is there any new or other business? I see none. With that, then, I would seek a motion to adjourn at 11:34 a.m. Councillor Murphy, seconded by Councillor Brose. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome back. I'd like to call to order this meeting, the Community Services Committee for Wednesday, March 12th. It is 11:42 a.m. Has roll call been taken? Ms. Van Starkenburg, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and we have quorum.
Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or in general nature thereof? Seeing none. Recommendation is that the minutes of the February 12th, 2025 meeting be approved. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by the member from Petawawa, seconded by the member from Madawaska Valley. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. There were no delegations and presentations. There are no communications. The first consent report is the Community Services Committee consent report, and there are 5 items. I would ask if there are questions on anyone, starting with number 1, the McKay Matter for Women. Seeing none. Number 2, the Acquired Brain Injury Workshop. Seeing none. Family Services and Children's Services Duty to Report presentation. Seeing none. Item 4, the Child Care and Early Years Service Planning. Member from Whitewater, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I was surprised. I thought the director going to speak to these 2 items before, or?
Yes, she definitely wanted to speak to number 5, but I can ask her if she'd speak to this one as well.
Yeah, and then maybe I can follow up with comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. Good morning, committee. So yes, items number 4 and 5 in the consent report speak to some of the children's services planning going on. So with regards to item number 4, this is about a requirement for each service manager to produce a 5-year service plan for childcare and early years. So committee may have seen, certainly we've had surveys out and we're doing a number of different methods of engagement in order to try to get input to inform the plan. It is a 5-year plan, so the current one we have goes up until 2024, so we are working on building the plan for the next 5 years and anticipate having a plan ready to present to this committee in the fall. So that work is underway. And with your indulgence, Chair, I'll just maybe speak to item number 5 as it does relate to the planning work going on, but it is its own item. So item number 5 is about the directed growth plan for the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system, or the CWELC system, which is known as $10 a day daycare for the children aged 0 to 5. And this is also a requirement that each service manager produce a directed growth plan. Many of the service managers have completed their plans. However, for the County of Renfrew, this was not an immediate priority that we complete our plan because, as this committee is aware, we don't have any CWELC spaces available. So the work to prioritize how those spaces are being allocated is not immediately in front of us. However, that being said, we are working to formulate the directed growth plan for the County of Renfrew, and I have asked Ms. Smith, the Manager of Children's Services, to come to the April committee meeting to present a draft plan to this committee for your review and approval. The information in the report in front of you is to provide you with some of the background about how we got to this point, about some of the history about the CWELC 5-year agreement, how the province initially looked to allocate spaces to each service manager, and a little bit of an update or refresher on where we're at in the fact that our 427 spaces, which were allocated to us throughout the 5-year 5-year agreement, the CWELC agreement, have all been allocated, have all been used. So we don't have any at this time, and certainly this committee has been very active in helping with advocacy around gaining additional spaces. So we want to ensure that we are very much ready with a directed growth plan that is transparent in terms of how spaces will be allocated when and if we do get more spaces. You will note that in the package and attachment is the province's access and inclusion framework, where it does specify a number of different priority areas that when the service system manager is doing its planning, some of the objectives that we need to achieve in terms of ensuring that we have equity of access within our CWELC directed growth plan. So as I indicated, that work is underway, and we will be have the manager here to present at next committee meeting, and certainly can answer any specific questions, and happy to engage in any of those questions, but was hoping that the information that is here in front of you is helpful in starting to digest the work that is underway and the plan that we will be putting forth for this committee's review and approval next month. Thank you, Chair. I'll stop there, but happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Councillor, we're good with that, or a follow-up?
Yeah, no, that's perfect, and I love that introduction. I do have comments on both of them, if I could, Chair, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And I just want to applaud. I think this approach is exactly where we need to go in order to be able to further advocate for childcare needs within the county. And these two planning documents, one being the 5-year plan for all childcare provision, and then, of course, the directed growth plan specific to CWELC, both are what we're missing right now, is what I would say. First, I'll just offer a comment on the actual 5-year plan. So, and this is ad hoc information. I was talking to hospital about recruiting professional staff to the hospital. The number one reason why the hospital is identified in an ad hoc manner, why it they can't attract anybody to the community, because there's no childcare. And they're not even asking for $10 a day childcare. They're just asking, if I need to work a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, where can I put my kid? We don't have that option right now. You might be 160th on the list. Okay, we take a look at, and I've informally just chatted with some of the key organizations here in the county, from paramedics' perspective, how do we support their shift work and the attraction of young paramedics that want to raise families in the community? We don't have those spots for those people right now. They're going to where they can find their spots. And I would imagine the same kind of situation occurs in all those professions that we're trying to attract people long-term care. Without childcare, we cannot grow the industrial, the employment portions of our community. So I think that 5-year childcare and earlier service planning is exactly what we need to be able to address and come up with a way to approach resolution to those. When I speak to item number 5, which is the directed growth plan, this is specific to the $10 a day care child. It's only going to be a portion of the total number of licensed seats that we have in the town, in the county. I completely agree. I understand. We're seeing areas in other portions of the province, and I've shared this with the director. The County of Lambton recently indicated that it wasn't at its 37%. In order to get to 37%, they put in a 50. The county built a 50 childcare spot. The province kicked in $3 million. Because they had a plan, because they identified the shortfall, they were getting capital money to build a building that they could then lease to an operator to meet those requirements. So again, this directed growth plan will also enable us to make the bid for that and advocate on behalf of filling additional spots to support growth in our communities. So I just wanted to put the additional emphasis on these 2 points and applaud the staff for bringing them up and scheduling when they'll come back in the spring and the fall. So thank you.
My chair fell down. So follow up, Ms. Patrick, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Moving Chair. through to you, to the committee. Just wanted to thank Councillor Nicholson for his comments and feedback, and we certainly welcome, all feedback from different angles, and we are taking our time with both of these plans in order to ensure that we do a fulsome review of where we're at and the needs of the entire community of Renfrew County. I just wanted to, kind of highlight it, just if it's not immediately clear and does not take away from any of the work going on with the two plans. But just with respect to, certainly, I recognize that, as we all do, that, safe and inclusive childcare is a key economic driver, and certainly myself and the staff, working in the children's services world, regularly have conversations about areas that are, seeking input and support to open new centers. And, one of the things that is very challenging for us right now is that without any additional CWELC spaces, the only growth that we can really help at this moment to support within the County of Renfrew is centers that are outside of the CWELC system. And what that means is that as the service system manager, we are not able to flow through any provincial money to help support their operations. So in order for someone currently at this time to open up a center outside of the CWELC system, they would have to charge parent fees that would be sufficient to ensure the viability of their center. So certainly that is very challenging in terms of operators that may want to serve their community and serve diverse people, because the fees would have to be quite high in order for them to be able to make a go of it without any support through the service system manager. So, this remains a challenge. We are continuing to support those that do want to open up new childcare centres, and we remain hopeful that, the province will do a recalibration of any unused or unallocated spaces within the provincial pot before the end of 2026, and that we may then, be able to have some centres that have opened at full fee opt into the CWELC. But currently, the work that we can only do is really just to support them with, we can invite them to our professional development and support them with information and support from our staff, but we're not able to flow them through any funding. So it does make it, very difficult for them. So just wanting to share that and make sure that, that is, able to be digested, by committee prior to a fulsome discussion next month. And certainly myself and the manager of children's services are both very cognizant that if we are allocated additional spaces, we may not be allocated as many as we hope, and some decisions may need to be made about how they're best being prioritized in terms of in alignment with the access and inclusion framework. So work is being done, and more to come at the next meeting, but just wanted to add some additional information there for this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, and before I go to member from Petawawa, Mayor's Grills Service, myself and the mayor from Deep River meet regularly now with the CEO of the Deep River Hospital, and definitely one of the major points there is the lack of childcare. You talk about physician recruitment and this 96-bed long-term care place, the childcare is just, I can go work there, but what do I do with my kids? So it's absolutely critical. We're at the critical state for sure. Mayor Service, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, and thanks, Councillor Nicholson and Director Patrick and all of your team for all the continued advocacy to try and get more CWELC spots here in Renfrew County. On March 6th, the federal government announced $36.8 billion of funding to create more childcare, reduce childcare spaces, reduce wait lists, hire more ECA, with the goals of creating 250,000 more childcare spots across the country in a year from now, by March 2026. $16.7 billion of that money is going to Ontario. And as we've seen, it's been a challenge here in Renfrew County as one of the only counties not to get new CWELC spaces in the last 2 years. So I just want to make sure that all of us are standing on top of the rooftops and continuing our advocacy to get more childcare spaces here in Renfrew County and get a piece of this pie that's being thrown out there. Because as we've come to learn and understand, if we don't have the spaces, we don't have access to the funding to build new buildings. So keep up the good work, and let's continue to advocate and to call on the Ontario government to give Seawalk spaces to the County of Renfrew.
Member from Killaloo, Haggerty Richards, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple comments and a question. Thank you for everything that you and your staff are doing. You're doing a great job despite being capped and having other challenges and pressures. Just a question. What is your wait list now?
Director, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, and to Councillor Mayville. Excellent question. We will try to bring some of that, we will bring that information. I don't have, next month, I don't have it off the top of my head. I will let this committee know that there is not a centralized wait list in Renfrew County, which is part of the challenge. Each of the centers manage and maintain their own wait list. So it is possible that parents have their names on 2 or 3 different centers. However, each center does supply their wait list numbers to us as the service manager on a monthly basis. So we will bring all of that data to the meeting next month, but recognizing that some of the numbers may be skewed in terms of parents being on multiple lists.
Supplemental?
Just a follow-up. Transitionally, when a child drops out, is it filled as quick, like the same day type thing, or is there a wait time? The transition doesn't happen very smoothly and quickly.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Mayville, I think it is quite rapid. There's definitely long wait lists everywhere, and when there's openings, they're snapped up. Thank you.
Member from Edmonton Bromley, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just in hearing that most recent exchange, it seems that this is much akin to long-term care spaces. They are not long getting filled either. The wait list is enormous there as well. I wanted to perhaps, through you, Madam Chair, if Ms. Patrick could provide a little bit more clarity. The very bottom paragraph on page 9 of the report, and it refers to the spaces, and just in the paragraph preceding that, it refers to the percentage of access that we have. And I'm a little bit confused because it seemed almost that this might be akin to the field of dreams, where if the spaces are there, then the funding will come. And I'm not sure if I'm misunderstanding that the spaces have to be there before the funding comes. But at the end of the day, when I'm looking at this, and one always needs to be careful with percentages, so in 2022, it's 20. At the end of next year, it's to be 28%. And when one puts that beside 37%, it doesn't seem to be an enormous target, but in fact, it's almost 25% short of the provincial average. So I don't know what the criteria are that the province uses, but I cannot imagine it is part of our advocacy at every turn of the rural and remote nature of our community. And to be able to have access to childcare, if I'm in Barry's Bay and I have to drive to Eganville, that's not really access. So by my mathematics, on the 427 spaces that we do have, if we were actually to be allocated at the provincial average, it would be an additional 137 spaces that we don't have. And someone in the province, some municipality, some region in the province of Ontario does have those spaces. So what is am I correct that the actual spaces have to be created before the funding will flow? Or if that's incorrect, what is the criteria by which how the province does allocate these spaces?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Councillor Donahue. Excellent and very astute points. I don't have all the answers. What I can offer is that this is when we have asked for information about how we started the agreement, this is the information that we have been provided by the Ministry of Education, which is essentially that the regional allocation model sought to develop a 37% provincial access target, and that each of the service managers would help contribute to that overall percentage of the province. So, which is, of course, as we're aware, not the same as bringing every service manager to the 37%, but that each service managers would have, some increase and would help to achieve the overall percentage. So, as you've correctly noted from the report, we were at 20% at the beginning of the agreement, and they are forecasting us at 28% at the end, or at the end of our spaces allocation, which we're already there at this time. Certainly, just one other comment, and just to share, and I've had a conversation with Councillor Nicholson about this, but with respect to identifying and quantifying the need, and some of the pieces that we're really working on building within the system to make sure that it's very, transparent and data-driven. One of the challenges that we do have is currently the wait lists are maintained by existing centres. So it will identify potentially that, a center in one area, say in Pembroke, is longer than potentially another center in Renfrew. However, there may be individuals that are living in other communities that don't currently have a center, that it isn't necessarily reflecting that need of that community to have it. So that's part of what we're looking to find ways to make sure that the data is very robust and also helps us to look at the needs across the communities, even those that aren't currently represented by childcare centres and that need new centres in their areas.
Member from Arden Prior, please.
Thank you, Chair. This to follow up on Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Service. Petawawa have Army people, and they're deployed. They can't be deployed if they don't have their child looked after. That was what from Colonel Giddy when we were down there a couple of months ago. With Gary's mention that the federal government's got money forthcoming, the last time I looked, the Army was federal, so maybe they can give us more loot because of the Canadian Armed Forces in Petawawa. Thank you.
Thank you. Member from Petawawa, please.
Thanks, Chair, and through you, just to respond to Councillor Lynch's comments, there is a new PMFRC building being constructed on the garrison with expected completion date in 26 or possibly 27 that does have additional childcare spaces, but not many. Not enough to satisfy the need that you pointed out when troops are deployed and what do they do with their children. So it's a good comment, and maybe it's another angle of attack in terms of us finding extra funding from the federal government, specifically for childcare on federal property at garrisons across the province.
Thank you. Member from Bonnechere Valley, please.
Thank you, Chair. The other thing that's occurred is that some of the private daycares have shut down, and so that's exacerbated the situation. But I almost feel like it's chicken or the egg. We don't have enough daycare specialists, ECEs, teachers, etc., to even have private daycares so that the people that want to move here, practice medicine here, be deployed here, we don't even have spaces for those children because we don't have those staff. So I think that there's a larger recruitment effort going on here as well. And I shuddered. I thought Councillor Nicholson was suggesting that we start a Renfrew County daycare. He assured me he was not. But it's one of those, we're in a, you like that, eh? We're in a real, we're at a real crossroads here. And it's concerning when we have to recruit to have daycare, to recruit to have physicians. And I'll just use physicians as the example, but just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on these items? No. Okay, we will then continue with the consent report for corporate services. Let me call that up. There is one information item there, if there are any comments on that. Member from Edmundston Bromley, please.
This is, thank you, Madam Chair. This is my standard comment. You will note the variance from 2023 to 2024 is just slightly over 10%. So once again, on an annualized basis, we are seeing a diminishment in the charges that are levied, and you will recall, committee will recall from Ms. Wilton's reporting at some point in 2024 that the largest contribution towards that diminishment are HTA or Highway Traffic Act charges that are substantially diminished. This trend, I think, began perhaps in 2019 and has not abated since. So once again, just to make known my concerns, that the only, as I am often at pains to explain, there is an explanation that in fact we have a much more law-abiding citizenry. I think that from a meta perspective that is unlikely. But we are seeing a substantial diminishment. And I want to make clear, too, that this is completely severed and divorced from the fine revenues that are here. Just the very fact of that we fairly routinely in this room have one or another of my fellow councillors bringing forward concerns about speeding on particular roads in their communities. And yet we are seeing on an annual basis for at least the last 5 to 6 years a regular diminishment in the number of charges that are showing up in our Provincial Offences Act courts, and they are primarily driven by a reduction in Highway Traffic Act violations. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? No? Okay, seeing none. I need a recommendation, a mover and a seconder that the consent reports be received as information. Moved by the member from Head Clamoriah, seconded by the warden. All in favor? Carried. There are no discussion reports. There are no deferred reports, verbal reports. Are there any new updates to information received that require verbal reports? Seeing none, I have nothing for a closed session. There are no new or other business. Any new business? Seeing none. Adjournment, I'll recommendation that this session adjourn and the next regular session be held on Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by the member from McNabb Braeside, second by the member from North Algona Wilberforce. All in favor? Carried. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Corporate Services Committee on Wednesday, March 12, 2025. It is 1 o'clock, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Connie, has roll call been taken?
Yes, Chair. Roll call has been taken, and we have quorum.
Thank you muchly. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? I see none. Could I have an approval of the minutes? The recommendation is that the minutes of the February 12, 2025 meeting be approved. Moved by the member from North Elgin Wilberforce, seconded by the member from Greater Madawaska. Are there any errors or omissions? I see none. All in favor? Excellent. We have no delegations this afternoon. We have no communications. I will move to the consent reports. There are two. One is under administration for the media release for advancing truth and reconciliation. The second is the Q3 employee recognition results. Were there any? I'll get a mover and seconder to get it on the floor, but I'm going to use you anyway. Member from Whitewater is moving, seconded by member from Head Clara Mariah. Comments, questions, concerns on the consent reports. Member from Whitewater, please.
Thanks, Chair. And it's only from a municipal perspective. I appreciate that these truth and reconciliation opportunities that are happening, and I know that the staff here at the county are represented as part of that. That's great. How is that being shared with our municipalities? Is that through the CAO's meetings in order to shape it down one level, just so we don't have all 17 municipalities wanting to participate if that opportunity doesn't present themselves at these?
I think that's an excellent idea. I'll turn to either Ms. Dombrowski or Mr. Kelly on the screen. You're on mute, Craig.
Mike, still? Can you hear me?
There you are.
No? There you go. Thank you, Chair, and through you. Sorry for any background noise that might occur. So we can, because of limited space and resources.
Craig, can you speak up a bit?
Yep. Can you hear me now, or not really? No?
Barely.
At all? Okay, maybe Gwen can take that a bit, or is she unable to?
Do you want to put it in the chat?
Hold on a second. Can you hear me at all? No. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Much better.
So, yeah, we have limited resources. Obviously, this has been the crowd size, or at least the group size, has been limited because of availability. So it's been limited to those organizations identified by the Renfrew County Administrator Group at this point, and they've been 40, 50 people in each meeting. So we're happy to pass what we learn along to the local municipalities in terms of sharing any documents or otherwise moving forward. It's something we'd like to express to our local municipalities, but that would mean dozens, if not hundreds, of folks being involved. But we'll look to the future of developing something with our local municipalities for sure.
Supplementary? Thanks, Craig. No, you're good? Okay, thank you. Anything further on the consent reports? So I have a mover and seconder, so I will ask for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. And now I'll turn this over to Mr. Burke under discussion reports with his treasurer's report, all things taxation, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, committee. Would you like me to read the recommendation?
I would. Let's do them separately, please.
Recommendation that the Corporate Services Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to set tax ratios for the county and lower tier purposes for the year 2025.
Thank you. I'll ask for a mover and seconder to get it on the floor, please. Moved by the member from Horton, seconded by the member from Brudenell, Lindock, and Raglan. Background, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As with every year, it is the upper tier's prerogative to set the ratio of taxes, that is the relative share between the residential, commercial, industrial, and all the various subclasses for the entire county. So this year we have recommended the split. There are no major changes from the prior year, just the required adjustments for the implementation of a new tax class for aggregate extraction pits and an adjustment for the industrial class as well.
Wonderful, thank you. Comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. And then our next recommendation, please.
That the Corporate Services Committee recommends that the County Council adopt a bylaw to establish the 2025 tax rates for the County of Renfrew purposes.
Thank you. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by the member from Arnprior, second by the member from Madawaska Valley. Some background, please, Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the adoption of our budget and the required levy contained therein, we can now calculate a tax rate that will be applied to the final tax bills of 2025. I should mention that we are a little bit earlier than usual this year bringing it forward. We are trying to get out in advance of any potential postage strike that may occur. We hear maybe May or late May. So with this bylaw passed, the lower tiers will be able to generate tax bills.
Thank you for that. Comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries. And the next recommendation, please. Would you like me to read it? No worries. I have a recommendation that the Corporate Services Committee recommends that County Council adopt a bylaw to establish the 2025 tax rates for County of Renfrew purposes. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by the member from Killu, Haggerty, and Richards, seconded by the member from Head Clara Mariah. Background?
Sorry, Madam Chair. I believe I was a little bit out of order there in my recommendations. So there are 3 recommendations. The one in front of you right now is the one I just described. The previous one was actually the rate reductions for vacant land and excess land, which in the County of Renfrew is 0% reduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments, questions, concerns? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? Wonderful. Thank you. That carries. Mr. Burke, did you want to go through your spring 2025 tax policy, or can it just stand on its own? Okay. Thank you, sir. Then I have a recommendation that the discussion report be received as information. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by the member from North Elguna-Wilberforce, second by the member from Horton. All in favor? And that carries. We have no deferred reports. Are there any new updates for information? I see none. We have no closed session. Is there any new business? I also see none. Then I have a recommendation that this meeting adjourn and the next regular meeting be held on Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. May I have a mover and seconder, please? Moved by the member from McNabb Rayside, seconded by the member from Laurentian Hills. All in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, Council.